But what I wanted to do is just give a little bit of background so it kind of sets up to where we are now. I know we talked about this last week. Was it Sandy that was here last week?
Yes.
Yeah, Sandy provided a good overview. And but basically, or essentially, Ellen White has a burden on her heart for the health institutes, of course, and she also gives counsel on the direction that the health institute there in Battle Creek was going. And of course, she used words like, she was shown the dangers of what's coming, and she had a burden to counsel. She had a burden to in public and in private, and also letters, because it says that it says, when I saw those who managed and directed running into the dangers shown me, of which I had warned them in public and in private conversation and in letters, and a terrible burden came upon me, she said. So she had a burden on her heart to help guide and to hopefully get them back in the right direction for the Health Institute. And also it talked about some of the things that when I went back, I just numbered a few things that I took note of, and the words that stuck out to me was stock. She meant, and we'll talk about that in the next few pages that we talk about. But it was I think we all know what we talked about last week was where they were offering stock, and basically she mentioned there was a lot of wealthy Adventists, but they were also offering this method of it wasn't a donation, it wasn't a liberal giving. It was basically offering an investment opportunity to get a large return, if you will, on investment. So that was not what she had in mind, and she was actually counseling that it needs to be more along the lines of our publishing associations, that it should be donations, and it should be a slow, maybe the giving should be a sacrifice, right? And so just like in the sacrificial giving, there should be the sacrificial building, if you will. The laborers come in and do the work sacrificially, the giving of time, the giving of their means. But whenever you have large amounts of money coming in, with the possibility of stock options, if you will, when the money comes in, they hire these things out, and the facilities and infrastructures get built rather quickly. So it definitely goes against the ways that she's given counsel. And of course, stock was one word. The other one was higher paying positions. We know that there are some institutions out there that everybody from the kitchen worker to the president gets the same wage, and that's I would say that's a more humble atmosphere, because it is a sacrifice for all those, whether it be somebody in the highest position and somebody in the lowest position. Everybody's getting paid the same means. And also another word that caught my mind was compromise. So in order for the institution to be popular, they started to compromise. Like she mentioned, calling Mr., Ms., and Mrs. instead of brother or sister. And ultimately, after I was trying to get a synopsis of where she was going, and one of the last words that caught my mind was a curse. So this institution, although it started in the right direction, and the physicians and the managers initially had the right mindset that it should be, it had the right vision. Over time, it started degrading or having the wrong vision. So when she mentioned curse, basically she referenced it. It started becoming, it says, on a whole, as a curse. It says, and yet calculations for more extensive buildings were made, and calls for large sums of money were urged. As it was then managed, I could but regard the Institute on a whole as a curse. And she went on and talked about how the Institute was causing the actual church there at Battle Creek to have issues. So the institution basically started, having unfruitful consequences. She knew that reform was needed, and so she basically helped start that reform, and it looks like that they turned a leaf, and the physicians and the helpers and the managers came to an agreement that they needed to make some changes. And but ultimately, she said, these changes don't come in overnight, and it doesn't take root. It takes time. So ultimately, that's kind of where we are with where we're going to go in the next few pages. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that before we get started. So on page 630, well, wait a minute, that's not it. 639, I'm sorry, yep.
Could I ask you a question here?
Sure.
I apologize, I haven't read before here. So you have, if you would, just for maybe my own dull mind, but the way they were setting this institution up is that there were stocks involved, and so that meant that people could give, I think you intimated just now, people could give money to help the institution go, and at the same stroke, they would hope for a good return on their money. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So in the long run, then, yeah, so in other words, they're not just giving money, they're getting money out of it.
Right.
Okay. For that. Now, was she completely against that in here? Does it look like that?
Well, yes.
Okay.
But as I read here, and we'll point it out, maybe she wasn't initially, and I don't know. I can't say for certain. I mean, I'd have to do a little bit more research. But she owned stock. I mean, it says in here.
Okay, that's true.
It says in here that she did.
Okay.
But she was giving counsel, and it says, it was shown to me. So there was things that she was shown, and she was advocating that they should make some changes. And because she saw the institution becoming or losing its vision and going in the wrong direction.
They were patterning to try and get the unbelievers in.
Right.
And so in their quest for that pattern, they began to divert the plan that God had wanted them to start in the health care that they were giving, and giving him all the credit. And as it became more worldly to attract the unbelievers, they pandered to the ideas that they would like to have done. And so then it became a curse that's out of the transition.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what's happened to us now.
this have been the time of Kellogg? Would this have been the Institute Kellogg?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't say in here. Of course, it doesn't mention any names in this lesson study. But just to Jerry's comment, it does say that in order to make the institution popular with those not of our faith and to secure their patronage, a spirit of compromise was rapidly gaining ground at the institute. So, again, it just lays the foundation for where we are. So, again, on page 639, starting with the word many, do I have a volunteer who would like to read, let's say the first couple of paragraphs here? Okay.
Many who have taken stock are not able to donate it. Some of these persons are suffering for the very money which they have invested in stock. As I travel from state to state, I find afflicted ones standing on the very verge of the grave, who should go to the Institute for a while, cannot for want of the means they have invested, that they have in Institute stock. These should not have a dollar invested there. One case in Vermont I will mention. As early as 1850, his brother became Sabbath keeper, and from that date he contributed liberally to the several enterprises that have been undertaken to advance the cause, till he became reduced in poverty. Yet when the urgent, unqualified call came from the Institute, he took stock to the amount of $100. At the meeting at length, he introduced his case of his wife, who is very feeble and who can be helped, but must be helped soon, if ever. He also stated his circumstances and said that if he could command the $100 then in the Institute, he could send his wife there to be treated, but as it was, he could not. We replied that he should never have invested $1 in the Institute, that there was a wrong in the matter which we could not help, and there the matter dropped. I do not hesitate to say that this sister should be treated a few weeks at least at the Institute free of charge. Her husband is able to do but little more than to pay her fare to and from Valley Creek. The friends of humanity, of truth and holiness, should act in reference to the Institute on the plan of sacrifice and liberality. I have $500 in stock in the Institute, which I wish to donate, and if my husband succeeds with his anticipated book, he will give $500 more. Will those who approve this plan please address us at Greenville, Montcalm County, Michigan, and state the sums they wish to donate or to invest in stock to be held as the stock in the Publishing Association is held. When this is done, then let the donations come in as needed. Let the sums, small and large, come in. Let means be expended judiciously. Let charges for patients be as reasonable as possible. Let brethren donate to partly pay the expenses at the Institute of the suffering, worthy poor among them. Let the feeble ones be let out, as they can bear it, to cultivate the beautifully situated acres owned by the Institute. Let them not do this with the narrow idea of pay, but with the liberal idea that the expense of the purchase of them was a matter of benevolence for their good. Let their labor be a part of their prescription, as much as the taking of baths. Let benevolence, charity, humanity, sacrifice for others' good be the ruling idea of the physicians, managers, helpers, patients, and with all the friends of Jesus, far and near, instead of wages, good investment, a paying thing, stock that will pay. Let the love of Christ, love for souls, sympathy for suffering humanity, govern all we say and do relative to the health institute.
Okay.
You know, one thing that's obvious here is that the money she did invest in stock, she said she was going to leave it there without any expectation of getting anything back. Because she just said that. She did have the money in stock,
Right.
but she said, I wish to donate it.
Right.
So she wasn't completely faulting people that were putting stock in, but she says, I'm going to leave mine as a donation.
Right.
So anyway, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Mhm.
I guess my question would be, did they ever let that dear man send his wife to her?
I don't know. I mean, I could just imagine as she was writing that how sad she was.
Yeah. You know, later on in the same testimony, and you'll find it very interesting later on volume 1 here, there's the story of Hannah Moore. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
I think I've heard that.
Covered
Yeah.
We covered that, yeah. So this is a case where, of course, the synopsis of the story was you had a convert who had been a missionary, found the Sabbath, came from Africa to Battle Creek because of circumstances. She was evidently a single woman, and she needed help and all that. And everybody in Battle Creek thought, well, the whites, James and Ellen White, will take care of this lady, and they neglected her, and she died.
Mm.
And that's another case of what she's dealing with here, and what she's dealing with in that case is all the same thing. It's selfishness.
Mhm.
It's selfishness. And some people want liberality to be perverted, and they want to get, and that's not right either. So there's a balance in all these things, but anyway, it's just kind of interesting what you're looking at here.
Right. Does anybody else have any comments on that paragraph? What I guess I just wanted to give an example of kind of like as it was explaining down here in the first paragraph as Jerry was reading. As there's a ministry called Times of Refreshing. They are, of course, self-supporting health ministry, and what they do, and I think I thought it was kind of encouraging when I heard that they were doing it. And they do medical missionary. And actually, me and my wife, Nevia, and Adon and Aaliyah, I think we attended a medical missionary training by Times of Refreshing in North Carolina. And it was for what? Was it a week? It was a whole week. The hot, cold, the wraps, the food. It was a really, really good seminar. But what he does is the money, if you donate to him, and I thought it was a pretty good concept. The money that if you donate to his ministry, over time, I don't think there was a time limit, but if you ever get to a point to where you have donated enough for a person's visit, then you can request, if you know someone, if you want to go, or whatever, they can go. So I thought that was encouraging that his ministry was of that nature, that if you donated to him, then he's going to allow someone to come in and go to the medical mission, or to the actual for the healing. And I just got a video just the other day. He gives testimonies periodically. I think I get a video about every couple of months. A lady who went to the treatment facility, and she had a lump underneath her arm, and it was actually stage 3 cancer. She went to two. She went to 2 of his trainings. One was in the middle. She actually went in the middle because she was encouraged to go through a friend to go, but it had already started. So she went in the very middle of the training. She went for that 1 week and then turned around and went to another 2 weeks. But at the end of the 2 weeks, her lump was gone. And she was in such an urgency to do this, or she was impressed with the urgency to do that. That's why she attended both. She went right away in the middle of the one, and then she found out about it. She was on a plane the very next day to go out to this treatment facility. I think it's in Georgia. But anyway, but long story short, she was going to have another biopsy or exam the day after she got back home, but she already knew the lump was gone. She said they said it was about a golf ball size lump underneath her armpit. So I mean, you can feel a golf ball underneath your armpit, but of course she said that she cannot feel it at all. So I'm interested in see the update, because they said that they'll give an update. But just a beautiful testimony of the the power that the Lord is providing through the medical missionary work. So again, in that paragraph, it says a couple of things that stick out in my mind, or that kind of stick out, was this is a sad story about this gentleman, who at one point had means and was actually probably seemed to be, as I was reading, he was doing very well. But when he hit hard times, or during that time, and invested into the Health Institute, but when he hit hard times sometime later, couldn't even afford to send his wife to the Health Institute. And
she actually says that
right.
she actually says that
She does.
So even the generosity of
Right. And you're right. It says these should not have a dollar invested there. And it was unfortunate, but she said there was nothing she could do. But what she could do is she could encourage the act of sacrifice, and to turn in this stock as turn it into a donation or benevolent giving. And she, at the end there it says, will those who approve this plan please address us at Greenville? So she was encouraging those that I'm going to do this. I encourage you to do the same. And it only takes one to start the right thing to do, and then it'll grow. So again,
Well, it sounds like she was trying to get like a benevolence fund started so that those who could not afford to go could go, because the means were already supplied.
good, yeah. Right. Like you said, Jerry, and I got that underlined. It says, "Let brethren donate to partly pay the expenses at the Institute of the suffering, worthy, poor among them." And she also says, as she reiterated here, it says, and state the sums they wish to donate to invest in stock to be held as the stock in the publishing association is held. So I don't know all the details. I think it was just, basically she wanted this institution to mirror the right way of an institution coming up, which was sacrifice, benevolent giving, maybe a more manageable, slow, sacrificial way, versus the, and she was seeing it firsthand. As we go down through, you'll hear where, the money was rolling in, but they lost sight on, what the purpose of the institution was to be providing, the spiritual development and health. But she actually indicates that they were more focused on a bigger facility and infrastructure. So we'll get into that. Yes.
In other words, they wanted to really expand the institution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's another discussion. But what she's presenting here is good business principles.
Mm-hmm.
And as per the institution itself, someone has said if your upkeep the next paragraph, one of the faults of the institution was, and she deals with this fallacy, because people were claiming that doctors work harder than ministers or editors. She said, well, that you can't really prove that, for one. And she said, if you are working too hard, that's your unwise decision. But obviously, they were allowing the physicians to command a higher salary than ministers or editors on the fallacy that they work harder than ministers and editors. She said, you can't prove that. So that would have been one place where their upkeep was more than their income, or their upkeep was more than it should have been, because they were overpaying people in leading positions.
Well, it's kind of like the bad business practice of today.
What's that?
That's the bad business practice of today.
Well,
Right.
they say a tremendous amount of money in America is spent. It's around 20% is spent on healthcare. And that one right component is going to eventually bring us down financially, because it's a huge burden. I talk to people all the time where they'll spend. One man told me, I don't know what he makes a month, but he probably spent 5 months' wages in less than 24 hours at the hospital for his boy. It's just horrendous what they're extracting on the public today. And about 80 years ago, if you went to the hospital for 2 weeks, it cost you 2 weeks' wages.
Right.
You go now there for 2 weeks, it might cost 2 years' wages.
Right.
So it's really, the greed has just gone insane now. But what she's trying to do is protect the institution. She's also trying to help the poor, which
Right.
it is our duty to do. So it's a matter of just being wise and smart
Right.
for success.
She's trying to get them to keep the focus of not going too fast, too quick, and too large, too quick, because as soon as you expand at that rate, as the money, it sounds like the money was just flowing in, so they were just funneling the money into getting their infrastructure bigger, and of course, bigger infrastructure, more patients. I mean, it just seemed like that they were just so focused on the wrong things versus the right things, and she was counseling on that. And
I'm sorry, I'm really enjoying listening to you. I'll try and shut up after this.
okay,
But I want to mention one other thing here. In the spirit of prophecy, there is a principle of decentralization. Okay? In other words, instead of having large institutions, you have small institutions. Now, if you look how the Lord has arranged the universe, He doesn't have half a dozen huge planets. Okay? He's got billions of planets out there. All right? When it comes to families, He doesn't have families 3, 4, 5, 600,000 people. All right? He's got small families, mother, father, maybe half a dozen children, whatever. God isn't doing things in a small way. And it is a fact that our work would have spread much more rapidly and much more efficiently if we would have done things in a small way.
Right.
For one, because then it can multiply instead of just being centralized in one place, and so it's more permeating throughout the earth. Instead of having a few publishing houses, we should have many publishing houses. And then, we look at the past 50 years, we have 3 major publishing houses and 2 of them are gone. Southern Pub and Review. So obviously, and one of the things, it's obviously mismanagement. Another thing from what I've heard is these retirement packages that they're doling out are really draining off our institutions. So there's luxury and greed that's going on in sin.
right,
And what we're looking at is practical things that are, not only moral issues, but it's a practical matter of being efficient in the church, so we get the message out to the world.
right.
It's just wisdom and survival here that we're looking at.
Right, and I think as I may have mentioned earlier, that with this disparaging of wages, of course, as wages become more and more disparaging from the lowest to the top, that naturally creates a greed for whoever's sitting at the top, getting that position. Naturally, it causes a type of greed, as you go out and you solicit for these people. I mean, if you think of it in our business world today, the CEOs that are getting millions and millions of dollars in bonuses and packages and stock options. You know, if the company does so well, they get stock options and stuff like that. So, and naturally, we see a lot of businesses go under, and they're not. But my point was going back to the more you keep the wages, the closer together you keep the wages, and if not equal, which I know of several of our schools systems out there, self-supporting school systems, that everybody gets the same wage, no matter what, even the person who runs the school, because the people that are working there know that it's a sacrifice to work there, and their heart's in it, their mind's in it, they're in it for the right reason, they're in it to mentor these young students that are on campus. So, so the more the less disparaging in the pay, the more I feel personally. I feel that the more the people that are there working, it's a sacrifice, and it's from the heart to do the work.
Yeah, and that's a fair enough thing, but there are some cases where certain people do deserve more pay than others.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That,
Yes.
you know, I mean, let's face it, a 16-year-old who has no family and is brand new at the job shouldn't be getting the same dollar as a man twice his age. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Who's got the experience and really, so, but, and I'm not trying to negate what you're saying either. I'm just saying in the mix of all this, these are things that have to be considered.
Sure. And like you're saying too, there's a just like at Heartland, I'm sure it's no different. You know, the students are there doing the work. Probably some of it helps with their tuition, of course, the work that they do. But some of it is part of work study, right? So you're not getting paid anything to do part of the work study. But then again, you have your staff, you have your facilities people, you have the teachers, you have and so forth and so on that are staff, and I understand that. So, yes. Well, let's move on to the next paragraph. Thank you for the discussion. That definitely helps in the facilitation. I think we're at the why. Does anyone want to start reading the next? Let's see. Let's go with. Let me see how long the paragraphs are. Let's try the next paragraph, and we'll see if there's any discussion in that, and then we'll move on to the next. So, anybody want to read the next paragraph? Okay. Does anybody got a mic? We can pass up? Okay.
Why should the Christian physician who is believing, expecting, looking, waiting, and longing for the coming and kingdom of Christ, when sickness and death will no longer have power over the saints, expect more pay for his services than the Christian editor or the Christian minister? He may say that his work is more wearing. That is yet to be proved. Let him work as he can endure it, and not violate the laws of life, which he teaches to his patients. There are no good reasons why he should overwork and receive large pay for it, more than the minister or the editor. Let all who act a part in the institute and receive pay for their services act on the same liberal principle. No one should be suffered to remain as helper in the institute who does it simply for pay. There are those of ability who, for the love of Christ, his cause, and the suffering followers of their master, will fill stations in that institute faithfully and cheerfully and with the spirit of sacrifice. Those who have not this spirit should remove and give place to those who have it.
Okay, and I think, Brother Kent, you hit on that, actually, almost word for word. So, does anyone else have any comments on that? Okay, we'll go to the next paragraph. You want to go ahead and read that one more paragraph?
As nearly as I am able to judge, one half of the afflicted among our people, who should spend weeks or months at the Institute, are not able to pay the entire expense of the journey and a tarry there. Shall poverty keep these friends of our Lord from the blessings which he has so bountifully provided? Shall they be left to struggle on with the double burden of feebleness and poverty? The wealthy, feeble ones, who have all the comforts and conveniences of life and are able to hire their hard work done, may with care and rest, by informing themselves and taking home treatment, enjoy a very comfortable state of health without going to the Institute. But what can our poor, feeble brethren or sisters do to recover health? They may do something, but poverty drives them to labor beyond what they are really able. They have not even all the comforts of life. And as for conveniences in house, room, furniture, means of taking baths and arrangements for good ventilation, they do not have them. Perhaps their only room is occupied by a cook stove, winter and summer. And it may be that all the books they have in the house, excepting the Bible, could be held between the thumb and finger. They have no money to buy books that they may read and learn how to live. These dear brethren are the very ones who need help. Many of them are humble Christians. They may have faults, and some of these may reach far back and be the cause of their present poverty and misery. And yet they may be living up to duty better than we who have the means to improve our own condition and that of others. These must be patiently taught and cheerfully helped.
Okay. So again, she's burdened, and again, if I can just imagine as she's writing these words, she's very sad. It's in a sad state, and she's really thinking of those who can't afford it, and those who actually are in need but can't go. So she has a burden on her heart for those people that can't make it. I mean, like she said, it's you know, I'm certain that it was very difficult probably to journey and to travel to get to these places, and like she mentioned earlier, it would some of these people couldn't even afford just to get there. Much less pay pay to be there, and you know, she did mention here that essentially what was happening is the people that had the means and the money, or the wealthy, feeble ones, you know, were able to go and get the you know, treatment, and then of course when they returned to their homes, you know, they were able to and I wouldn't say enjoy, I would say be less burdened when they return home, because once you get the treatment, you know, they were able to come back, and maybe I wouldn't say easily, because I wasn't living in those times, so I can't put myself in those times. But I would say that it was more practical, more easier for them than it was for somebody who gave everything to go there to get the treatment, but had to go back to the same lifestyle and burdens and work. Maybe they needed the rest, but they couldn't get it when they got back home, because they were poor and they needed to work and they needed to, it was a struggle. So is there any other comments here that you would like to share before we go to the next paragraph here? Okay, the next paragraph, would anybody like to volunteer to read the next paragraph? Janet?
But they must be willing and anxious to be taught. They must cherish a spirit of gratitude to God and their brethren for the help they receive. Such persons generally have no just ideas of the real expense of treatment, board, room, fuel, etc. at a health institute. They do not realize the magnitude of the great work of present truth and reform, and the many calls for the liberalities of our people. They may not be aware that the numbers of our poor are many times larger than the numbers of our rich, and they may not also feel the force of the frightful fact that a majority of these wealthy ones are holding on to their riches and are in the sure road to perdition.
Can you read the next paragraph?
These poor afflicted persons should be taught that when they murmur at their lot and against the wealth on account of their covetousness, they commit a great sin in the sight of heaven. They should first understand that their sickness and poverty are misfortunes, most generally caused by their own sins, follies, and wrongs. And if the Lord puts it into the hearts and minds of his people to help them, it should inspire in them feelings of humble gratitude to God and his people. They should do all in their power to help themselves. If they have relatives who can and will defray their expenses at the Institute, these should have privilege.
She makes some very strong statements.
Absolutely.
One is that these poor people have no, that are wanting help. At the top of 642, they generally have no just, which means correct, idea of the real expense of treatment, boardroom, fuel, etc. at a health institute. In other words, some people, they're expecting help, but when they get it, even if they get it, they're not realizing, that every dollar that's given to you, there's sweat and labor in this, and it should be appreciated accordingly.
Mhm.
She says they don't really realize, and a lot of people, these people, because of the economic world and mindset that they live in, they're unaware of the business facts of running an institution, and so they're coming expecting this help, but they don't realize that when they do get it, it's more of a gift maybe than they realize. But that's an interesting comment. And then the other one is, she's talking now of wealthy admins who are holding on to their money.
Mhm.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly what she's saying. And she says these wealthy ones are holding on. They may not also feel the force of the frightful fact that the majority of these wealthy ones are holding on to their riches and are in the sure road to perdition.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
Yep.
In other words, if we have means available and we're holding on to them, we just can just chalk it off that we're lost. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if we're being selfish with the means that God has given us, we're in a lost condition. That's just the fact. She's just bringing it out right
Right.
there.
What goes along with the stock options? If they're expecting a large interest in return, they're doing it for the wrong reasons to begin with. If they're
And then she
nervous.
comes back at the poor again, and she says, look, the reason most of you are sick is because of your own lack of discipline. That's exactly what she's saying. They should first understand that their sickness and poverty are misfortunes. That's in the middle of the second paragraph here on the page. Are a fortune caused by their own sins, follies, and wrongs. And if the Lord puts it in the hearts and minds of his people to help them, it should inspire them in their feelings of humble gratitude to God and his people. They should do all in their power to help themselves. Look, no matter what bracket of life we're in, we're liable to covetousness and selfishness,
Right.
whether we're poor and among the unfortunate, or whether we're more, what's the word, prosperous.
prosperous. Right.
Prosperous. It's either way, you've got human nature, and it looks like whether you're poor or rich, we better be careful when we will be lost. It's just the reality of it. And all of us, no matter what bracket of life we're in, we have to guard ourselves that we're not falling into the trap that human nature typically falls into.
Right. Right. And I don't think I have many more words than what Brother Kent mentioned. I just know that I can, just from personal experiences, I can just go back to a few. My wife, she came from a family of 10, and they were very, very poor. But she also said that you could, when they had to sweep their floor, it was a dirt floor. So they did move from that environment. They moved to another place. But my wife recalls in early childhood, since a little baby, all the way growing up, she said their house was clean. They were clean. They were not dirty at all. Cleanliness is next to godliness. But I'm just saying that they were a clean family. They were dirt poor. They didn't have very much.
You may be poor with water, and some poor people can afford paint.
Right.
But they can at least afford water.
And
Stay clean.
her dad worked very hard at this job, which definitely caused health issues later on in life. But hauling heavy bags of sugar cane on his shoulders. And then when I met my wife, he was already battling with shoulder injuries and he was battling with workers' comp, things like that. But I'm just saying a very, very hard-working family. But also in my mind, I can go back to other situations to where, and I'm looking at this, she says misfortunes most generally caused by their own sins, follies, and wrongs. There are people out there that are poor, that are lazy. And I'll just say that honestly. And I'm not being mean or critical. I'm just saying that, and I don't want to take up time going off on that, but I just wanted to make that point. Does anyone have any other comments or want to read the next paragraph? Did you have a comment? You'll read? Okay. Sure.
Of the many poor and afflicted ones who must, to a greater or less extent, be objects of the charity of the Institute, and because of the lack of funds and the want of accommodations at the present time, the stay of such at the Institute must be brief. They should go there with the idea of taking as fast and as far as possible a practical knowledge of what they must do and what they must not do to recover health and to live healthfully. The lectures which they hear while at the Institute and good books from which to learn how to live at home must be the main reliance of such. They may find some relief during a few weeks spent at the Institute, but will realize more at home in carrying out the same principles. They must not rely on the physicians to cure them in a few weeks, but must learn so to live as to give nature a chance to work the cures. This may commence during a few weeks' stay at the Institute, and yet it may require years to complete the work by correct habits at home.
And I know we don't got much time, but I'd like to finish this part of it so we don't leave anything for next week. So if you could continue to read, thank you.
A man may spend all that he has in this world at a health institute and find great relief, and may then return to his family and to his old habits of life, and in a few weeks or months be in a worse condition of health than ever before. He has gained nothing. He has spent his limited means for nothing. The object of the health reform in the Health Institute is not like a dose of painkiller or instant relief to quiet the pains of today. No, indeed. Its great object is to teach the people how to live so as to give nature a chance to remove and resist disease. To the afflicted among our people, I wish to say, be not discouraged. God has not forsaken his people and his cause. Make known your state of health and your ability to meet the expenses of a stay at the Institute to the physicians addressing Health Institute Medical Division. Are you diseased, running down, all you possibly can for yourselves, and others will help you some.
Amen. I know I think we're done with time, but I just want to make a quick note here. And I know Brother Kent mentioned it, and I may have alluded to it too. That if you get the opportunity to attend a medical missionary training, I encourage you, because that's how as Brother Kent said, having being able to reach out to as many as we can locally. I know that the large institutions are going to get people to come in, and it's going to be a more focused effort. But if we can share with one person, and that person can share with another person, and as we try to help those, because I know my wife has a burden for it, and as I've seen her help other people, I know that if anybody ever ails in our immediate sphere of influence, I know that if anybody's sick, my wife gets a call. If whether it be a health remedy or I'm aching or I'm hurting here, or I've got this or I've got that, she gets the call for advice. And of course, my wife is always seeking out the right and natural way of doing a lot of things. But I encourage you to share and help as many as you can, and I think that's kind of the premise here that I would like to leave with, is we can do our part in helping those that are hurting, that are afflicted, that are lost. Not only can we help them physically with their physical ailments, or helping with a natural remedy or whatever, we can help them spiritually as well, because that is the right arm of the gospel. So I think I went over the time, but does anybody have any last comments? Okay. Can we kneel as we have a word of prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful again, and thank you so much for your love and for your grace and for your mercy. Lord, I pray that this study was uplifting, and I pray that it was a blessing to those that attended, Lord. But I pray that we will continue to read the counsels and apply what we learn, Lord, because I know that it is a humbling experience to read the experiences and read the things of those times and how applicable it is today. Lord, just in reading about the health institutions and the publishing houses and the way these facilities were brought up. And Lord, we know that we were giving counsel about how these facilities were to be run, or how they ought to be run. And Lord, we know the perils that came. Lord, I pray that you will continue to work in our hearts and in our minds, Lord. And I pray that you will be with us through this service hour that's coming up, Lord. And I pray that you will lead in a mighty way. And we thank you, and we love you, and we honor you. In the humble name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.